We expand the conversation, talking more about the Israel-Iran war. We're now joined by Na'eem Jeenah from the Afro-Middle East Centre. Very good evening to you, Na'eem. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, the deadly conflict between Israel and Iran has entered day 4, with both sides widening their attacks. Civilians are terrified as the death toll continues to rise. What is your assessment?
Well, from the very beginning, the Israeli attacks were illegal. I mean, they started with attacking nuclear sites in Iran, which is illegal under international law. The most recent is an attack on a television station and a media center, which is illegal. And so its entire attack has been illegal. The idea that this is a so-called preemptive strike is in itself illegal. But, you know, a bigger picture around this is when we look at the responses of some of those people who are at the G7 now. Germany, France, for example, the United States responded on Friday before Iran even began retaliating. I mean, the German response was the worst, condemning completely Iran for attacking Israel when Iran hadn't even begun responding. In a sense, what we're seeing is this kind of attack by Israel and its global North supporters against the global South dissenters. Nothing that Iran has done in terms of its nuclear program is illegal. Yes, it has enriched uranium up to 60%, but that is not illegal. It has not produced a nuclear weapon, and it has promised that it will not produce a nuclear weapon. And Israel, on the other hand, has nuclear weapons, anything between 75 and 400. We don't know how many. They have not signed the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, etc. Yeah. So the question is then, you know, why did Israel undertake this attack? Number one, Netanyahu has been determined to undermine any negotiations between the US and Iran that will result in a deal between the two, because any such deal would mean that Iran's economy would be able to improve, sanctions will be lifted, etc. And the Israelis cannot countenance that. They cannot accept that there could be a rival to them in the region. Secondly, and you remember that those talks were supposed to take place yesterday. Israel launched its attack on Friday morning. Yeah. Secondly, that Israel has achieved none of its objectives in Gaza, and Netanyahu, after 20 months fighting against ragtag militias in Gaza, has not been able to achieve anything, and so he wants to produce some kind of a victory.
So Na'eem, let me ask you this: as Israel and Iran threaten these increased attacks, I mean, no pushback from either one of the countries. World leaders, you did mention some of the responses that we've observed from world leaders, but a lot of the world leaders are actually stressing restraint amid fears of even wider tension. And with so many voices weighing in, is there any reason that you may know why the Arab League, for one, is so quiet?
That's a very good question. I mean, look, many members of the Arab League, or some members of the Arab League, I should say, are in league with Israel. The United Arab Emirates, for example, has very good relations with Israel, diplomatic, security, military, intelligence, etc. Some others, like Saudi Arabia, would prefer to remain neutral. Saudi Arabia, at the moment, has good relations with Iran. They would prefer to remain neutral. Others are, in a sense, forced by circumstances to work with the Israelis, such as Jordan. Some are not forced, but have made that decision anyway, like Egypt, which prevented and harassed marchers just trying to get to the border with Gaza a few days ago. So the Arab League is not going to have consensus on this. And then we have, of course, Algeria, for example, which I believe would support Iran in this instance. So the Arab League is not going to have any kind of unanimity and will not be able to take a position. The calls for restraint, I should say, are really very problematic. because all of these governments should be putting pressure on Israel to stop its attacks. Iran has said quite clearly that as soon as Israel stops, it will stop. So the aggressor is Israel. The one that is violating international law is Israel. It is Israel upon which all of these states should be putting pressure to stop its aggression, so that this thing might end. You can't, one country attacks another country. You can't then say to both countries, you must exercise restraint, or as the Germans and French did, condemn the one that is being attacked. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense.
So you touched on the attack on the television station. In a statement, the Israel Defense Force has said that the Air Force targeted a communication center that was being used for military purposes by the Iranian armed forces. How does that sentiment bode with you?
Well, after 20 months of their adventures in Gaza, we know this narrative. Bomb a hospital and then claim that there's a military center underneath. Bomb a UN school and claim that there's terrorists hiding in there. Even if those accusations were true, it's not legitimate. But we saw the footage. That woman is not a military spokesperson. That woman is a presenter on a television station, and the roof came crashing down on her head. The Israelis have been trying to shape the narrative to make themselves look like victims all the time. It's not working anymore. And they bombing nuclear sites, bombing gas fields, bombing television stations. All of this is illegal.
We heard U.S. President Donald Trump saying that he believes that Iran would like to talk, but saying that they should have done that before the conflict with Israel.
Well, they were talking. I mean, there were negotiations between Iran and the US. The sixth round of those negotiations was supposed to have taken place yesterday. Yet Israel launched its attack on Friday because it wanted to ensure that these negotiations don't take place. So who is at fault? It's not Iran. Iran has been willing to talk, has made it clear that it wants to talk, has made it clear that it wants to reach an agreement where it will guarantee that it will not manufacture a nuclear weapon. So Iran has been talking. The Israelis have been shooting. Trump lives in some kind of a different world, really.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening, weighing in there on the developing international story that we continue to monitor. Na'eem Jeenah from the Afro-Middle East Centre.